Stephen, some people don't like the international break, but I absolutely love it, and I think the last few days have shown why it's so exciting. We've had some real drama in the World Cup qualifiers with the Republic of Ireland fighting back to qualify for the playoffs, the 3-2 win in Hungary, and then we've had Scotland qualifying for their first World Cup since 1998 with an amazing 4-2 win over Denmark. We're here to talk about Northern Ireland. And our international window maybe wasn't quite as exciting. You were at both games, 1-0 loss away to Slovakia, which meant that it was the playoffs for Northern Ireland. And then, of course, the 1-0 win over Luxembourg in a game that didn't matter so much. Let's start with Slovakia and that 1-0 defeat. Of course, if Northern Ireland had got a draw there, that would have meant they would have had a good chance of finishing second in the group, which would have meant a better draw for the playoffs. That didn't happen. An injury time goal sealed Northern Ireland's fate.
Yeah, it was a hugely disappointing night for the players and for manager Michael O'Neill. It was a controversial evening as well because Slovakia had 2 goals disallowed, rightly so, and then the goal that was given in injury time, Michael O'Neill and the players thought it should have been disallowed as well for a foul on Daniel Ballard, and without doubt they had a case. But I would say this, Northern Ireland's ability to defend set pieces on the night was poor, and they were finally caught out in the latter stages of that match. And Bailey Peacock-Farrell will know he should have done better from the cross. And I think all evening Slovakia were the better side. Northern Ireland played in fits and starts. I would suggest, Keith, it was probably the most frustrating night of the campaign and the most disappointing performance of the campaign whenever all of the boys really wanted to deliver. I would add, though, that there were certain players who were missing. The midfield of Shea Charles and Ali McCann was out, although I would counter that by saying I thought Brad Lyons and George Saville did fine. And then Ethan Galbraith was missing, and that meant that Conor Bradley was put in a more forward position, and maybe that just didn't work out in the night because we know how magnificent a footballer Conor is. But as a whole, the team didn't really perform. I would say probably Rory McConville was the best player on the pitch for Northern Ireland, and it was a tough night to take.
I don't like to pick on one player because, a defeat is a team situation, but that was a bad mistake from Bailey Peacock-Farrell for the winning goal, and it isn't the only mistake he's made in this campaign. There's certainly 2, possibly 3 if you want to count the Germany goal at Windsor Park where he's been at fault for. We really have missed Pierce Charles over this campaign. Yeah,
we have. It's worth pointing out that Bailey Peacock-Farrell's made some crucial saves as well in the campaign, but there have been times whenever he's been found wanting as well. So Pierce Charles is Northern Ireland's number 1. There's no question about that. And Michael O'Neill will be hoping that he is back fully fit and ready to go for March in the playoffs.
The upshot of all that was that the game against Luxembourg didn't really mean anything, and it felt like a friendly. The fans started drifting out in about the 75th minute. It was freezing cold, and people got a bit fed up with it. But Northern did win 1-0. Jamie Donley scored the goal. It was a penalty just before the break, maybe a controversial decision, but we've been on the wrong end of a few, so we'll not complain. What are your reflections on that game? It's hard to draw any massive conclusions from it.
Yeah, it had that friendly feel, and you're right. It's rare that I've been at Windsor Park where you're looking around, there's empty seats with about 5-10 minutes to go. So that gives you an indication of what the crowd were feeling about it. But I was really pleased for Jamie Donley. I had a brief chat with Jamie out in Slovakia, and obviously there's frustrations there because he's not getting too much game time at Stoke City where he's on loan from Spurs. And he's a brilliant lad, is Jamie, and it was fantastic to see him score that goal. Meant a lot to him, meant a lot to his family. You'll remember, Keith, back in March, he actually changed allegiance from England and went to Northern Ireland. It's a pity there weren't more people in the crowd because at the end of the match, the fans really should have been shouting, "You're not English anymore," in a reflection of the Kingsley Black song all those years ago. But listen, a win is a win, and Northern Ireland ended up with 3 in this campaign. And although I'd have preferred 10 points, 12 points, maybe even 15 points, which would have potentially taken you through to America, Mexico and Canada automatically. It is what it is, and this is a developing team, and we always have to remember that.
We talked about Jamie Donley there. It feels like every time Northern Ireland play a game, there's a different man up front. I mean, it's changed from game to game. Obviously, the playoff is coming up in March. It's going to be really important who plays in that number 9 role. Has Jamie Donley made a case for it? It's a strange thing to say because he isn't really a striker, but he's somebody who drops off, and he isn't somebody who's going to play on the shoulder and beat the last man or whatever. But do you think he's made a great case for starting that playoff in March?
Yeah, I do. I would start him. In fact, I know my team now, Keith. I could tell you it off the top of my head. Pierce Charles in goal. Obviously, you'll have a back three of Hume, McNair and Ballard. You want Conor Bradley on the right. You want Justin Devaney on the left. McCann and Shea Charles in the middle of the park. You've got Isaac Price, Ethan Galbraith, who for me was the best player of the campaign for Northern Ireland. And then up front, I'm going for Jamie Donley. I think Donley has got a little bit about him where he can hold the ball up. He's a really classy footballer as well. And he showed that he can score goals. Obviously the goal that he scored was a penalty, but he had to stay cool and calm while the whole VAR thing was going on. And something else that I noticed, although it was offside, he took a goal brilliantly after an Ethan Galbraith cross, and I do know that the rest of the players enjoy playing with Jamie, so I think he's number 1 for me anyway. Obviously it's Michael O'Neill who's going to make the choice, but I would definitely be going for Jamie Donley to start in the playoff.
I agree with that team, but football never works like that. You can guarantee like 3 of them will be injured. That's just how it's going to be. Campaign overall, obviously they qualified for the playoffs via the Nations League. Northern Ireland could have got 0 points and we still would have been in the playoffs, which is strange when you think about it. It feels to me like Northern Ireland won the games they're expected to win and lost the games they're expected to lose.
Yeah, it's a funny one really because Michael O'Neill wanted to finish in the top 2. And we finished third, which is slightly disappointing. But there was still lots of encouragement, lots of excitement. I think the games that got away from us were actually the Germany games, and you wouldn't have said that at the start of the campaign. Northern Ireland were good enough on the night to beat Germany at Windsor Park, but they let a real sloppy set-piece goal in, and that's a worry for Northern Ireland that they were conceding set-piece goals throughout this campaign. They've got to sort that out for the playoff. The other concern, I guess, is away from home. Since Michael O'Neill has come back, he has forged this exciting, wonderful to watch, enthusiastic, vibrant young side. But away from home, they struggle. At Windsor Park, I'd fancy Northern Ireland to beat anyone. But away from home, it's difficult. Only twice have Northern Ireland won competitive matches since O'Neill's returned, and that's been against Luxembourg and San Marino. And that's not good enough if Northern Ireland are going to get to a World Cup.
Well, you mentioned that on Thursday the draw will take place for the draw for the playoffs, and Northern Ireland can play Italy, Ukraine, Turkey and now Denmark. Who would you want? Who represents Northern Ireland's best chance out of those 4 for progressing to the playoff final?
I'd quite fancy Ukraine because of the history with Euro 2016 and Michael O'Neill, and sometimes fate plays a part in football. The other factor about Ukraine is it'll be in a neutral venue. We both believe it's going to be played in Poland, so that might suit Northern Ireland. Denmark, I'd be quite interested.
They weren't particularly impressive on Tuesday night when they were beat 4-2 by Scotland.
But I'd quite fancy Denmark purely on the basis that, I've watched Northern Ireland play in Copenhagen over the last couple of years, and we've lost narrowly. Northern Ireland would have a shot against Denmark. And of course, it was a couple of years ago, Keith, that the whole excitement started with Northern Ireland and the Michael O'Neill Mark II team when Northern Ireland beat Denmark 2-0 at Windsor Park. So the players will have good memories from that. Italy away, I'd be amazed if Italy miss out on another World Cup.
They've missed out in the last 2. I mean, we're used to Italy being in the final and winning the World Cup, not missing out potentially on 3 in a row. It's incredible.
Yeah,
but it isn't a classic generation of Italian players.
No, there's no Maldini set type players there. Baggio, you name it. So listen, Italy, Northern Ireland would be huge underdogs, but it wouldn't be an impossible task. Turkey, I'm not so sure I fancy a trip to Turkey.
It is maybe the most difficult of the 4.
Yeah, well, and the atmosphere, the fervour over there, I imagine the game would be in Istanbul. It would be crazy. So, but listen, you take what you get, Keith. What needs to happen, regardless of who Northern Ireland play, Michael O'Neill's team will have to produce one of the greatest performances Northern Ireland's ever known to get into the final. And in that final, there's a possibility that Northern Ireland could play the Republic of Ireland.
I don't want that, Stephen. That's too much for me to handle. On a personal level, as a Northern Ireland fan, the nerves before that game, and I'm sure it would be the same for people who support the Republic, would be unbearable. I don't think I could face it. On a serious note, social media is going to be a cesspit on the run up to that game. I think, whether it was in Belfast or Dublin, I think that there would be good behaviour inside the ground, I'm sure, for the most part. But it's just something I think we could all do without.
You're right. What I would say is, though, you see, if Northern Ireland were to play the Republic of Ireland in a World Cup playoff final, it would be the most watched game on the planet, maybe for the wrong reasons. Yeah. So perhaps we'll get Wales. Yeah. I'd quite fancy going to Wales, or even having Wales at Windsor Park. And the beauty about the draw is, although Northern Ireland are guaranteed an away semi-final, it's 50-50 whether they play home or away. Ultimately, what we want is Northern Ireland to be going to North America in 2026, to be playing in a World Cup finals. It's been 40 years, Keith. Can these young players do it? Well, you know what? I give them a punching chance, because they've got the desire, they've got the commitment, they've got great talent, and the togetherness in the squad is absolutely fabulous. So here's hoping we fulfill our North American dream and are playing in a World Cup next year.